Good evening. I'm going to call the Urban Affairs and Housing Committee meeting to order. It is May 27th. We have two items on our agenda. The first one is order number 26-109-683, a proposed zoning amendment to Chapter 650 zoning, Section 33, Results-Way Mixed-Use Overlay District. And the second one is order number 26-109-754, the communication from attorney Aldo Cipriano on behalf of Mark Evangelos regarding the request release of a low-income deed restriction on the unit at 64 Village Drive, Unit 4. So we're going to begin with the Results-Way Mixed-Use Overlay District. It's my understanding that they're going to run through a brief presentation, so if you would like to take the well, reintroduce yourselves again, please. And I think everybody's got a copy of their presentation.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Terry McKeckern. Can you guys hear me now? No?
Yes.
Terry McKeckern with Greatland. Kevin Sheehan, also with Greatland. And we're in front of you this evening to discuss the zoning amendment to the Results-Way Mixed-Use Overlay District. I believe everyone in this room has seen this presentation. We've made 0 changes to it. So I'm going to fly through it, but to the extent there are questions or you want to go back to any slides and talk about them, happy to do so. I'm just going to zip right through it. We submitted it, so we should talk about it. That's the existing campus as it looks today. Just a refresher on our involvement with the campus. We bought it at the end of 2020, executed a 200,000 square foot lease with BJ's Wholesale to relocate their corporate headquarters from Westboro to Marlboro. And 2 years later, we did a 10-year extension with Hologic, the women's health company, who has been a longtime resident of Marlboro and of this campus. And then most recently, we were successful partnering with Marlboro and winning the Massachusetts, it was a DCAM RFP to build the new Massachusetts State Crime Lab. So we have now broken ground on that and are well under construction if anyone has driven up there recently. It's a different site.
Yeah, and actually the official groundbreaking is scheduled for June 9th. The ceremony, unofficially program. But yes, we're well underway with construction, so we're hoping you all can join us there that day.
Yeah, hopefully we get good weather. And then this is just a summary of the zoning that we've done to date. I won't go through it. I think everyone knows where we are. The headline here is we are looking to raise the residential cap from 100 units to 400 units in sub-district 2 of the Results-Way Overlay District. This is the most important slide. We are at step 1 here. So the next step being that we would come back in front of these same 3 committees. Unfortunately, you will have to listen to the different presentation, but 3 times, on the master plan and the development agreement. And then finally, as the different phases would get built, we'd be back for the site plan approval of each of those individual phases. A plan view of the existing campus. This incorporates the crime lab into the master plan. The crime lab was zoned under the underlying zoning of the campus, not the overlay district. So now we're updating the master plan to include, or we will, I should say, update the master plan to include that. This is representative of the full build out, but assuming this would be the next phase, this is 300 garden style apartments, all surface parked. Then we're showing 100 townhomes. I know I've said it in the past, but between the 100 and 300 is still sort of a fungible number of what's townhomes and what's garden style. And then the final phase being an additional commercial building in the middle of the campus there. We don't have to build any structured parking until that final phase. And that's your full build out. I just want to pause, and the only thing I'll say that's new in the presentation is we've now done this a few times and we've heard from a bunch of members of the committees. And the feedback that's sort of been consistent is that there is a lot of interest in seeing people like the diversity of housing stock and are interested in seeing what the phasing will be when we get to the development agreement. So that's been consistent. interest in amenities for the broader community at the campus. So things like walking trails, potential better access into craft food hall, anything we can do to explore bringing the outside in. And then finally, just on the sustainability front, both the planning board and I think the city council touched on maybe alternative energy sources, preserving mature trees, just kind of looking broadly at what we can do from a sustainability standpoint as part of the development. So those are kind of just key themes we continue to hear, and I'm assuming we will hear as we move into the next phase of this, which is the development agreement. Anything on this?
I actually have one more note on this slide, just to clarify. I feel like in some of the news reports we've seen, it's reported like an additional 30,200 parking spaces, and that it is somewhat inaccurately because it shows the existing parking is 1,700, so that's included, that's sort of the total parking at the end of the day. So the net new would be approximately the difference, half of that, essentially, including all the phases.
Yeah, it's about 1,500 new spots.
Yeah.
All right, so back to the zoning request that is on the table before us is to amend section 650-33E, which is eligible uses, number 1, which is the uses permitted by right, E, which is multifamily dwellings, and then number 2, where it's currently says sub-district 2 up to 100 dwelling units, including without limitation age-restricted dwelling units. They want that 100 to be 400. So I'm going to quickly go through the letter from the planning board that we received because their input is part of this whole process. May 6th, Honorable President Ossing and councilors, at a regularly scheduled meeting on May 4th, the planning board took the following action. On a motion by Dr. Finby, seconded by Mr. Russ, the board voted to send a favorable recommendation to the city council on the above referenced proposed zoning amendment for the following reasons. The board's consensus was that the proposed zoning amendment is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood, specifically due to the diversity of homes that are being proposed. The board's consensus was that the proposed zoning amendment would not negatively impact the neighbors. The board's consensus was that the redevelopment of the site does provide an economic benefit to the city. However, the board is unable to determine if there's a market need for more garden-style apartments, but did agree that the city is in need of townhomes. And the board agreed the proposed zoning amendment is in keeping with the intent and purposes of the city's zoning ordinances. The board has the following additional comments. Among the proposed development options, the board prefers the inclusion of townhouse units and recommends that these be incorporated in an early phase of the project. The board also recommends that any mixed-use amenities and retail components be included in the early phases of development. If walking trails or bike paths are developed, they should be open to the public, and where feasible, connected to existing trail and path networks. An effort should be made to preserve mature trees on site where feasible and to maintain the existing natural vegetation buffer. Yay, Fay, Finby, Hughes, LaVenture, and Russ, and there were no nays. The motion carried 5-0. Sincerely, Sean Fay, chairperson. So based on some on this and some on just my own personal opinion, I'm in favor of increasing the number of units. I'm just not so in favor of letting them be by right. So I had talked to the solicitor. I had sent him a draft we played around with. Everybody has a copy of what I can't move to amend the amendment, but I want to throw it out as conversation to see if anybody else thinks that switching up from all by right to having some be special permit. And I saw Councilor Doucette's hand.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think your approach is basically 300 by right and up to 400 by special permit. Is that the intent of?
No, 100 by right and then 300 by special permit to make a total of 400.
Oh, 3 more additional dwelling units. No more than, because it says no more than 300 dwelling units within the
No more
district.
than 300 dwelling units within the sub-district, provided that, but it's, if you look at 2 is special permit. So one is by right.
Okay. And then 300 is by special permit.
Yep.
Okay.
And then not to exceed 400 is in that.
So 100 plus 300 equals 400 is your point.
Correct.
So at the 300, the only, I think for wording, if you could put 300 additional dwelling units, that might make it more readable. But the other thing I also wanted to talk about is item C, the biosafety lab. That was, I talked to these guys beforehand. That was originally proposed when they were going to be putting biomanufacturing up there. But it is not relevant to the state crime lab, and I would put that under item 3 as not allowed, you know.
We could probably do that, but this was in the original. They could still, if they want to do by special permit, do a biosafety level 3 laboratory. And we agreed back when this was originally done that they could do that by special permit. I don't know that we want to take away that right at this point. We could deny the special permit if you don't want to have the lab,
Okay.
but
Yeah. It's just, I was figuring if it was a way to get rid of that one, if it's not needed, I'd keep it like that. So I still don't, I think the current word in item D is not clear, so I would just put no more than 300 additional dwelling units within the subcontract, within the sub-district.
all right, as I stated in the email, this has been looked at by the solicitor. I hesitate to add that word additional because it's very clear that it's one and then it's another, so.
It's not to me, that's why I'm
100 and
saying.
then there's 300. No more than 300 units by special permit.
Yeah, but,
They're not additional, they're something
right,
that
but
they
then
need.
right afterward, it says the entire subject to 2 shall not exceed 400. So you see 300 and then 400. Makes it
Right.
a little confusing.
Counselor Navin?
So I think that just if coming from it a different way, Councilor Doucette, because there's already 100 allowed by right, by saying that there's no more than 300, you've got the delta there, so that the no more than 400 just leaves the 100 in there. So it's not the 300 plus 400, it would be 300 plus the
100.
unsaid 100 is the
Right.
400. So
Yeah.
I mean, I think it is clear. I mean, I hear what you're saying as far as the, you know, if a quick read of it, but I think since the solicitor's blessed it, I'm comfortable that it gets to the point that Councilor, the Chair Roby is trying to make.
Okay.
But, you know, I also struggle with some of the ordinance language that we see on a daily basis anyway, so I do rely on the solicitor to keep us in
Yeah.
the hot water. 'cause,
Yeah, I think he's going to be
If I
watching.
were the one to do it, we'd all be in trouble, so.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's going to be watching this one anyway, so. The other highlight that you had, the multi-subject to shall be, clause made conditional, yeah, the other change, I mean, motion to approve effectively these changes as they are presented in red. I got no problems with that.
And how about with the deletion? And Counselor Orm is not here, but I think the other item on our agenda tonight makes it clear that we know,
Do age restriction.
yeah,
Yeah, so agreed with that too.
we don't want
Yeah,
any more age restricted, and we know that age restricted means that they can't be affordable, and so they don't help with our affordable count. So, Counselor Ossing.
So help me understand why we need a special permit. The master concept plan requires a two-thirds vote. The development agreement requires a two-thirds vote. What is the special permit buying me other than having the applicant come before us 3 times, I guess?
I guess it just gives us another layer of looking at things. The original development agreement, which you probably have, but I don't know that anybody else did, had some, I will call it mitigation, but I think mitigation to me is where we can deal with mitigation when we have special permits. We can't by right. So unless we want to add a ton of mitigation in the development agreement, it's easier for me to say, let's look at all of this special permit. And I'm also going back to what we did to the original results way, where Avalon 1 was by right, Avalon 2 was by special permit. We let them have more, but we did it by special permit.
Right, but I would argue that the mitigation is outlined in the master concept plan and development agreement. And again, I'm trying to see what the value is of a special permit coming before us. You know, in the master concept plan, we set up, we want how many townhouses, how many apartments, the sequence of construction, you know, as part of the development agreement, we can outline all that. I'm trying to, again, I just don't understand what a special permit gets us.
Nothing more than what a typical special permit gets us. To me, I just don't want them to say that they can have 400 units of housing by right with no ability for us to have any say on what they look like.
But we do, that's what the master concept plan and development agreement are for. I mean,
Well, maybe, we never got that far before, so I would rather have this in the zoning, and then the other two pieces are extra steps, or next steps, but the zoning would take place. Councilor Navin.
I hesitate to ask a legal question of the president, but I do want to ask it because I want to help get some clarification here, just because this is obviously a different process than we go through on our other developments, and it's a little tricky. If we are to change the zoning to allow the 400 units by right, and then we get into the next phase, which is the, I'm going to say for people at home, but for myself as well, then we get into the master agreement for the development, and we put in restrictions that say we want to see the 100 townhomes built first, right? And
Yep.
you shall not build the 300 garden-style apartments until the 100 townhomes are built. And the proponents, who have been very cooperative and have been very great to work with, and we had some different people in the past where it was a little bit challenging, but let's just say we're all working together, but then all of a sudden you guys feel like we pulled the rug out from you a little bit and say, well, you changed it, you said we can do this by right, we want to build because the market says we're going to get a better response for 300 garden style. Who gets the recourse in that scenario?
So-
Are we going to land court? Are we going,
No.
are we here? I'm just trying to understand.
So,
How that
Madam,
goes.
can I respond?
Certainly.
And I'd ask Terry and Kevin to, you know, fill in any blanks, but the master concept plan basically, go back to the cartoon, for lack of a better word, you know, kind of outlines what it's going to look like, right? Master concept plan. Development plan is now going to say, here's all the stuff we want in it. We want the parking garage first, the buildings, because remember we got hung up on that a couple of years ago. We wanted office buildings before we saw residential units. And we couldn't get the commitment for the office building, so the thing kind of went, all right. Well, we
Yes,
actually.
we did, because now we have a great crime lab where they were going to put those 100 units that they wanted to build first. So look at how that works
So,
out.
so you can pat ourselves on the back for not.
It doesn't happen often, Mr. President. Let's take a lap.
But the development agreement, again, Kevin and Terry, tell me if I'm wrong, is going to specify, we want the garden-style units first, the apartments second, and we can change the numbers. I mean, it's just 400 units. If we want 400 townhouses, I guess we can get it. I mean, again, it's got to come down in the concept plan. If we don't like the concept plan and say, hey, we want the whole thing, all townhouses, they may not want to do, just like, we wanted the office building first, and we don't like it, it doesn't go anywhere. But I'm still trying to determine, what does my special permit get me that the development plan doesn't get me? I'm not trying to be a stick in the mud, I just don't I'm trying to understand why I would want to have a special permit in addition to the development plan.
And I guess my thought was it could make the development agreement less wordy and less financially involved, and let the financial pieces be in the special permit. But if everybody thinks the development agreement is the way to go, then I guess we can do that. Mr. Sheehan, did you have a comment or a question?
Yes, if I may.
Help.
Just to respond to a couple of things, and Councilor Navin's point, I think, is accurate, that, as Terry outlined, there are multiple steps under the overlay. So if for some reason, we can't come to terms on what the concept plan should look like, or the mitigation in the development agreement, we basically don't have a by right project at that point. So I do think the council does, and the city does retain control over it in the same way. It accomplishes much the same thing as a special permit. From our perspective, the development agreement is preferable, I would say, from a commercial perspective, from a financeability perspective, where we can look at it and say, and we're willing to have this negotiation with you all up front. That's better for us than saying, okay, great, we have some ability to build a certain number of units, but we have to go back and negotiate a mitigation agreement in the future. We're not sure exactly how much that will cost us, so it makes it a little bit harder from our perspective to actually get the units built in the future. So
I
we
think-
would prefer to do that up front if possible.
So I appreciate that point, and I think it clears it up. Some of the part that I'm struggling with here, and so I rely, on Councilor Rossing and the chair to help here. One of the things I get hung up on a lot as we go through this process, not specific to this process, not this parcel, because obviously the overlay makes it a little bit more complicated than we deal with others. My argument here, which you have all heard too many times to count, is that our chance to make sure we know what's going into a project happens when we change the zoning. We have seen time and again here, again, not this parcel, when we approve the zoning overlays, and then that only took the 6 votes, and then we come and we need a special permit, and we don't go for it, we often end up in court. Is that different here? And and I think it gets to the point you're trying to make, Mr. President, and then also, so I'd like a little.
So if I may, Madam Chair, so it is. So again, so the development agreement requires a 2/3 vote, okay? So look, the key elements: required mitigation, number 1. 2, restrictions on the development areas. 3, proposed phasing. 4, obligations with respect to pedestrian and vehicle interconnectivity. Those are all things that have to be addressed. And I'll just go back to, they can build 100 houses right now. Well, technically, yes, but no, they haven't come before us with a master plan or a development agreement.
Right.
So if I was going to throw a special permit on top of that, I'm not sure
Sure.
what I'm going to benefit. I mean, I guess you can say it's another layer of checks and balances, but everything I've just heard, mitigation, the development areas, the phasing of the projects, they are written currently in the zoning as it's listed right now, and there's no wiggle room for a six vote. It's a 2/3, because this is a development plan. Same thing with the master concept plan, 2/3 votes for each one.
And I would just throw out there that this is the exact same language before the sub-district 2 was added to it. I don't think we changed anything else. So when we did sub-district 1, we had all of this, we had a master plan, and then they decided they wanted to add more housing, and we amended to do special permit for the additional housing.
Because the way sub-district 1 is listed, is it more than 350? The wording is different for sub-district 1.
It's more than 350 developed dwelling units within the sub-district by special permit, and by right, it was, I gotta go back to my pages.
More than 350 dwelling units within the sub-district. So you could have more.
Right, up to 350 by right, and then we gave them the special permit to add more.
Yep.
So that's exactly what they're doing. The original says you get 100, they want to add another 300. I'm saying, let them have it, but make it by special permit.
So I would disagree, because we haven't got to that point. When we did that, we had approved the 350 across the street. Now we're saying 400 on the other side by a master plan and a development agreement, which is what we did on the other side of the street. The special permit came in. If they said, hey, I want to build 500 houses, now I would agree that maybe you want a special permit. But to do that now, to go from 100 to 400, I just don't think is of any value for the council.
Madam President?
Go ahead, Dave.
I'm sorry, who?
You can go.
Counselor Doucette.
Thank you very much. I mean, I see this as, the reason why they're submitting this is because if they want to submit a master plan today, they can show 100 units of housing. If we agree to this and we put, this passes through and gets approved by the council, when they come up with the master plan, they can show 400. But the master plan right now can only show 100. So we're giving them the opportunity, and correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, when you come up with the master plan, in the current form, you're limited to 100. When it goes to 400, your master plan will be updated to 400 units. So that's what comes to the council as part of the master plan, is 400 versus 100 units.
Correct, they have to
Master plan.
submit the master plan regardless of whether the extra 3 are by special permit or by right.
Right, but they can't show the 300 because it's not allowed.
Correct.
In the current form. If this gets passed, they can show those and say, oh, by the way, these have to be done by special, well, this allows them to do it by passing this as a special permit, as a zoning change. My only concern is I would rather see owner-occupied housing versus apartments. Because there may be demand for apartments, but there's incredible demand for owner-occupied housing. Specifically that, something garden style, something lower cost to get in, entry-level housing versus the apartments. That's, because, there's lots of expensive apartments out there that no one in the city can afford. And we need to come up with alternatives that are more affordable. And that has to start with new development. So that was my only other comment, but thank you.
And I'm guessing you're not doing single-family homes. You want to be able to put as much housing as you can on that property, which is why you're doing townhomes and then apartment buildings.
Correct. We are open to the idea of ownership versus rental. I mean, we would love to keep as much flexibility as possible to meet the market, but townhomes, could be ownership as opposed to rental. And again, I would just kind of draw the contrast with the Avalon situation where I believe they got a certain number approved and started and then came back later. And so I think what we are hoping to achieve with this proposal is get the whole thing approved, as you said, Councilor Doucette, and sort of plan the whole thing out now. Again, with all the appropriate mitigation and, phasing and other aspects which we expect to, be included in the development agreement.
Madam Chair.
Councilor Navin.
I really hesitate to go back to the conversation that we had before we got off of it into the different rabbit hole, but here we go. Mr. President, so in this particular situation, is the development agreement analogous to the special permit? Because to me, the items that you outlined that would be discussed and approved in the development agreement by 2/3 of the council are the same things that you would
Put in a special
negotiate
permit.
and plan through in a special permit.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
Council Roby may not agree with that, but again, and it's unlike a special permit where we kind of wing what's going to begin based on what the applicant
Yeah,
submits to
it's
us.
dictated very-
This tells you it has to include these items.
Right. However, so my question comes, and I want to be clear, I support, I have a disagreement. I would like to see a little bit of a smaller number, but I am supportive of of units in addition to the townhome. So I'm not doing this to be a stick in the mud. I'm doing this more because I've got to get my head wrapped around this. If that is true, again, if they are not happy with what we approve or don't approve the development agreement, say we vote down the development agreement, if that were a special permit, we would go to land court. Is that the same?
I don't think you don't go to land court for a development agreement. That's just,
They just don't build, they can't build
they
anything.
just can't
Well,
build it. They got to
build
come back and
anything-
figure out one that's going to pass muster through the council.
Yeah.
May I make a suggestion that we go this route as opposed to the special
more-
permit process that we go through on every single other development in the city? And maybe we may have a little bit more of strength as a body when we decide what we would like to see. But I guess I digress.
I am perfectly okay having the conversation around what the development agreement can have in it, and that will be the next step, and go back to the language that they had if they're amenable to adding the specific language about the affordables that was suggested by the solicitor, compliance shall be made multifamily dwellings in sub-district 2 shall be subject to 650-26 of the zoning ordinance. Compliance shall be made a condition of any site plan approval that's required. And that is the affordable housing piece. And I know you sort of alluded to you didn't have to have affordables when we had the public hearing, but in the information that you provided when you talked about what the benefits of the city, there is the affordable piece in there, which was picked up by the solicitor. So he says they're talking about affordable there, and I think my concern with 650-26 is the language says multifamily housing and affordable is by special permit. It doesn't say anything about site plan only. So by right is only site plan. The solicitor said by adding this language in, you have to comply with the affordable piece. And I want to make sure that that is there.
I apologize, I don't know the exact numbers. That's the 12% affordable?
Yes.
That is our expectation, is that we would comply with that.
Okay. So we can go back then to the simple language of changing 100 to 400, but adding in notwithstanding anything to the contrary in the zoning ordinance or the results-way mixed-use overlay district, multifamily dwellings in sub-district 2 shall be subject to 650-26 of the zoning ordinance. Compliance shall be made a condition of any site plan approval that is required. And that's okay by you? Does that sound okay by?
Just a clarifying question, does that mean that we're then agreeing to the special permit by accepting that?
No, the special permit's gone.
There we go.
I would go back to just your
I was
basic.
referencing,
Yeah, to your basic.
okay, perfect.
Scratching 100, putting in 400, but add that additional, I would also strike without limitation age-restricted dwelling units. So it really would be sub-district 2 up to 400 dwelling units, period, and then the notwithstanding anything language.
That would be fine.
So we're getting rid of age-restricted.
That's fine.
So you didn't talk about building age-restricted anyway, and
Not our intent at this point, no.
they don't count for affordable units, and I don't think we really want to go down that rabbit hole.
So,
Does that
Madam Chair,
work for Councilor Doucette?
so the subject, so the final wording would be sub-district 2 up to 400 dwelling units, including any dwelling units, because it doesn't say.
No, period.
Period.
400
Stops at dwelling units.
Period.
Yes.
And then add the notwithstanding sentence from page 4.
Hold on. Looking at page 4 of your notes.
Page 4 of, yes. Page 4 of,
Notwithstanding anything to the contrary to the zoning ordinance, multi-unit sub-district 2, plan should be made a condition. Okay. So basically, the red on page 4 is appended to what's shown on the handout for,
right, except
Yeah.
it says 100 dwelling units, it would be
Okay.
400. I'm okay with that.
I rescind my original proposal, and I propose for that change instead.
All right, is everybody clear what we're doing?
Yep.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to amend the zoning to read sub-district 2 up to 400 dwelling units, period, notwithstanding anything to the contrary in the zoning ordinance or the results-way mixed-use overlay district. Multifamily dwellings in sub-district 2 shall be subject to 650-26 of the zoning ordinance. Compliance shall be made a condition of any site plan approval that is required. Further discussion? Councilor Doucette.
I just want to make one comment. I'm not sure where you're going to put the additional 300 units, but I hope a lot of those office buildings don't disappear and become apartments.
Isn't that the horseshoe shape
So the
up on the top
top is,
right?
the intent is the top is to be apartments or?
All the way to the top right, the U and the N, basically.
Okay. Okay, so that's where I was going to go. Thank you for clarification.
And it's hard to read, but I believe if you look at your copy that you
Low
got. You
res.
can probably read the top there and understand the color coding. All right, no further discussion. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so this will get reported out at the June 8th meeting. I can see if the solicitor can have it in proper form for the meeting. There's probably enough time. If it is, as a letter from him, then we could suspend to actually approve it that night. Otherwise, it would be moved to refer it to the solicitor to put in proper form. So we'll see how that all plays out. But otherwise, we'll take the next step at the June 8th meeting, and hopefully we can get this done. And then it'll be the next step.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry, I may have misheard Councilor Doucette's. Was he just motioning to amend or motioning to approve?
No, I think
and
he
then
was
just took
dropping his amendment where he
I
wanted to
dropped my original
add.
amendment.
But then proposed to amend this?
Yes.
Did you just do it all in one vote, to amend it and to approve it?
To approve the amendment.
Yeah.
Yes, to approve the amendment, as I stated multiple times.
Yep.
You're clear on what we
I
voted on?
am very clear on what we voted on. I just,
Okay.
does it need a further vote to send it from committee?
Well, I'm going to report it out,
Yeah.
and then and I can ask the solicitor, like we have in the past, if he can get it on the agenda as an action item in proper form, we could vote on it that night with a suspension. If it's not, then I will move to suspend to refer it to the solicitor. It would be on the June 22nd agenda.
And we have
So-
to vote on it then, or hold a special meeting, because the 90-day clock elapses July 6th.
Yep, thank you. So we'll try. I would, it's simple change for him and a letter from him to say it's in proper form. I think it would be easy enough for him to get it on there. Okay? All right, so that finishes up with this one. We will take up the next item unless there's something else that you have for us. All right.
Nope.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for working through this with me. Thank you, President Ossing, for... All right, the next item on our agenda, which I just is, as I had said before, order number 26-109-754, the communication from Attorney Cipriano on behalf of Mark Evangelos requesting the release of a low-income deed restriction on the unit at 64 Village Drive, Unit 4. So I know there was a lot of paperwork within the communication sent by Mr. Cipriano. We can do this the hard way, or we could do this the easy way. I went back and looked at the May 6, 2024 Urban Affairs report, which was, the chair stated she has spoken to legal counsel, and the suggestion was for the committee to endorse the concept of releasing the affordable housing restriction on Unit 3 and refer to legal department to draft proper language that would be on a future council agenda. I did take the time to actually write an order based on what the solicitor had presented, but I think we could move to endorse the release of the affordable housing restriction on Unit 4, Building 1, and refer to the legal department to draft proper language to be on the June 8th agenda. We did this the first time when we found out that EOHLC does not count age-restricted housing as affordable. So there's a deed restriction. They wanted to sell the first unit. There were 2 units that were approved when this subdivision was built. This is the second unit, so hopefully this is the last of the issue. I did try to look at in all the other age-restricted special permits that we have approved, and none of them had anything about affordable. So I think this should clear up the issues and let them sell it without the deed restriction that's there. Councilor Doucette.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I remember when this went through the first time, and I'm a big advocate of affordable housing, but basically can't happen there. And the current owner is stuck between a rock and a hard place because, you know, they inherited the place and they can't sell it until we actually get this thing done. So granted, they're going to benefit, but I don't think there's anything we can really do about this. So if there's any other discussions, I do a motion to approve, send it to the solicitor, and release the deed restriction.
Madam Chair. if I may.
Counselor Vidal.
Thank you. I've talked with a number, this whole division is within my ward, and I've developed some relationships with some of the folks that live there, and everyone that I talked to was in favor of us accepting it as well. So I would ask for this committee to vote as we have in the past.
All right, so it should be pretty easy. The solicitor can, again, hopefully get this language on the June 8th agenda. If not, then it would be another one of those reported out, ask it to be referred, and then he would have the proper language for the June 22nd. This doesn't have a timeline, but I think he's done it once. He has all of the details that he needs from Attorney Cipriano. So it's been moved and seconded that we endorse the release of the affordable housing restriction. Further discussion? Nope. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. And that is our agenda. So
Motion to adjourn.
it's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor? 2, 3, 4. We are adjourned at 8:13.